お久しぶりです。真島の兄さん。
Well, what I see right now is lots of people who look towards the game business with all these dreams in their minds about how bright the future of the industry is. When you ask them why, they all say, oh, all these new systems are coming out that are even more powerful than the PlayStation 2. We'll be able to create things that'll attract even more people to games, and so on. I've been consistently saying this is wrong, but most of them look at what I say and respond, no, no, you're wrong. And as a result, this is what's happening today. There really are just an overwhelmingly huge number of people out there that know nothing about the business of games. The game business is a tough one, and it's not been around for that long either. So there are people out there that find this industry incredibly interesting. Venture capitalists in particular. That's why these people are pouring money into the field right now. Right? They give money to people that really should be unemployed, and they in turn round up some friends, start a company, and begin creating software. But is this really the best way to go about this right now? The more amazing graphics and sound you put into a game, the longer it takes to finish. Not just a year, but now. More like a year and a half or 2 years. So then your development costs balloon, and when you finally put it out, you have zero guarantee of it selling. That's what the game industry is today. Because of that, I've been saying since last year that this industry will undergo a major shakeout between now and next year. The general public doesn't realize it yet, but most people in the industry know it's happening. I've just been saying that pretty soon. Even the public will be forced to recognize what's going on. True. For example, Square claimed that they would produce several billion yen, i.e. tens of millions of dollars, in profit for fiscal 2000. But more recently, they've turned that into several billion yen in losses, which is essentially exactly what I said would happen to them before. And Square's a publicly traded company too. There are still many private software companies out there, and now all of these companies have no idea what's going to happen to them in the future. With all this downsizing going on, I'm sure we'll be seeing many more announcements like that. The thing with this industry is, no one actually needs what it produces. If what we were making was absolutely essential in order to live, then the consumer wouldn't complain about price or supply, because he'd be in big trouble if he ran out. On the other hand, we produce entertainment, and there's a million other kinds of entertainment out there. If the game industry went away, it's not like people would keel over and die on the street. If it came to pass that people started saying, these games are all stupid, I gotta stop playing them all the time, then what do you think would happen? You don't need games to live after all, so the market could fall right out. It could even shrink to a tenth of what it was. Certainly, the average gamer's perspective has gradually shifted over the years. They're getting sick of games that are nothing but graphics and force. They want something to play that's actually fun. So why are companies still aiming for nothing but graphics and force? The most impressive phenomenon that occurred last year, in my opinion, was when Enix released Dragon Quest VII on the original PlayStation and not the PlayStation 2. It was the newest game in the series, but it ended up selling far more than I predicted. Something like 3 million or so copies. However, when you look only at its graphics and sound, it looks very rudimentary compared with other PS games. If you compare it to other titles, you'll find that there are hundreds of PlayStation games that have far more impressive graphics. Despite that, out of everything released last year, only DQ was able to rack up such high sales figures. Meanwhile, games with incredible, utterly beautiful graphics were completely dead in the marketplace. This just backs up what I've always been saying. games have nothing to do at all with graphics. Right. Up until now, games have had nothing to do with movies, like I've kept on saying all this time. But now people are going on about how every game will be like a movie from now on. We've come all this way, and somewhere along the line, we've forgotten that we are supposed to be making games and not movies. Now, as a result of that, game development is turning into a circus, costs are skyrocketing, users get bored faster than ever before, and the development of truly new games, new ways of having fun, has all but stopped. And now, because of all that, it's getting difficult to make a profit producing video games. If we don't change the way game development is carried out, I can't see the industry or the marketplace rejuvenating itself anytime soon. Well, let's say that we make a game called X and we port it to game systems from company A, company B, and company C. Then it doesn't matter if a user bought A's, B's, or C's system. He'll be able to play game X on his own console. There's no difference between any of the game systems in this case. Now, I certainly understand the reasoning behind a multi-platform strategy. As I said before, development costs have spiraled upward, and it's become difficult to gauge how well something will sell in the marketplace. They want to cut their risks and be able to sell that many more copies of a single title, so they decide to just release it on everything. I can understand that. However, if this becomes the norm, then it'll have a dire effect on the marketplace. If users can play the same game on every single system out there, then there'll be no reason to buy one system over the other. It'll be just like buying a TV. No matter which one you buy, you'll still have all the same channels. In the game business, software is our lifeblood. If that software becomes the same everywhere, then there'll be zero difference between companies. The marketplace will just turn into a giant hardware war. Now, you'll agree with me that TV sets are a fairly indispensable part of life these days. More people have them than don't. Washing machines and refrigerators are the same way. People have to buy them no matter what, so dealers end up relying on added extra features and advertising to compete in the marketplace. On the other hand, game machines are far from indispensable. If the software was the same no matter which system you buy, then the only point we'd be able to sell on is price. This industry is based on producing fun, innovative games, but if that goes away, then we're all done for. That's why, even though I understand where software houses are coming from, I think ultimately it could break apart the industry. Yes, Nintendo's business is to make games that can only be played on Nintendo systems. Nintendo's games only run on Nintendo's consoles and no one else's. Our aim is to get people to think Nintendo's games are the greatest, the best in the world. We're devoting all of our effort to that right now, and we'll be able to show our efforts to the world this year. We'll see how it turns out after the Christmas season, or about 10 or 11 months from now. The cheaper, the better. Gamers play games, and not systems after all. If a gamer wants to play game A and game B, then buying the game system is nothing but a secondary obstacle to that. As a result, the cheaper the hardware is, the easier it is for the users to buy it. At the same time though, we have to worry about our costs. Up until fairly recently, it was safe to lose money on hardware sales, since you more than made up for it in the software you sold. It's impossible to get a system out the door that way anymore, however. So when you release a system today, you don't necessarily have to profit from it, but you can't afford to lose money on every single console you sell. As a DVD player, it's well worth the money. As a game system, it has a few problems. It's just too hard to make software for it. It's absolutely vital that you design a system such that it's as simple as possible for developers to create games on. If you don't, then costs begin to rise, and it becomes more difficult for the designers to realize their creations. It just becomes a gigantic minus for the system in developers' eyes. There are a lot of ways of thinking about that. Personally, I think that most people going on and on about the net know nothing about video games. People who don't get game creation are going on and on about networked games, probably because they can't come up with any better ideas themselves.